Welcome to Village in Motion. I'm Marcia Boyles, and I'm delighted to begin this segment of Village in Motion with Ron Taylor, who is our Director of Finance. Ron, we're delighted to have you this morning, and I'll bet you're just full of wonderful information. This is the year end.
It is the year end, so we're having a boatload of fun with our year end activities from a departmental standpoint as well as a resident standpoint. So lots going on.
Well, you're trying to balance your budget just like we are, I'm sure.
Without a doubt, yeah. So, we're trying to close out the 2017, budget year, looking at our expenses, looking at our capital projects, making sure that those are being closed out. Of course, we're never in a position where we spend all of the money that we've been allocated at 12/31 of the year. So doing accruals, but making sure that those projects that we have kicked off during the 2017 year, that we accrue for any expenses that will carry over into the 2018 year. So definitely a lot of activity with the department heads, with our corporate team, making sure those processes happen correctly. Additionally, we're kicking off all of our 2018 projects. So clearly the Dogwood Commons and Garden Ridge activities will continue moving forward, but we're kicking off the town center repositioning activities, so opening up project codes with our corporate developers for that, as well as Village Square.
Is this the pool and fitness center, and when does that start, Ron?
So actually we are in design discussions now with the corporate project managers. We're looking at how all of it's going to play out, where things are going to be moved temporarily, such as my office, which will be relocated outside of town center, as well as where will things be moved on a permanent basis. So all of those activities are going on. We're going through design phases, and I think you'll start to see actual changing within town center within the next several months.
That soon?
Without a doubt. Additionally, we're doing the exact same thing for Village Square. So the common area of the clubhouse, we're looking to really spruce up the area and really give it a more vibrant and modern look. The sales team here in Village Square will be actually moving up to town center after that activity gets started. So lots of changes going on. So we're trying to make sure all of that gets kicked off. And then we want to make sure that we're communicating with the residents on what they can expect, when they can see some of the changes happen, and how we're going to try to make sure that we're accommodating the activities that typically go on in these areas so that they're not negatively impacted by the construction activities. So
Ron,
all of that's going on.
Are there going to be simultaneous construction activities in both Village Square and Town Center lobbies?
Unfortunately, I think the answer there is yes.
Wow, that's going to put quite a strain on, isn't it?
Yes, so we are going to, however, try to ensure that we can limit that as much as we can, and we segment it so it is not much of an eyesore, but there will be construction that will be going on simultaneously for us to make sure that we can have a short of a window as possible for the overall impact.
One thing that you indicated that startled me a little bit as we were chatting before the program, and that was that we are actually financing entirely the new construction. That it's not coming, we're not taking out bonds or anything of that sort.
Correct.
And that's fairly unusual, you indicated, with Erickson Communities.
Without a doubt.
Being able to do that.
Because of the age of Green Spring as well as our success that we've had, we're in a position where we can actually pay for our own construction without having to borrow, which puts us in a great position. It allows us to not have to be concerned with financing and interest rates and payback terms. And the great thing about it is, we get to move money between our tier 2 or tier 3 levels so that we can say, let's earn interest as long as we can on dollars and only move it when we actually have to make sure we pay for services rendered. So it puts us in a great position where we don't have to tie up all of our cash, all of our reserves at one time.
All right, that's certainly helpful.
Yeah.
Well, so many changes coming up
Without a doubt. As we also finish out the 2017 year, my team is busy trying to work with residents, almost kind of like everyone does at the end of the year. Do I have everything in order? So we are continuing to promote our residents coming in, looking at the files, making sure that they have their refund distribution forms filled out the way that they want. Do they have the proper executors identified in their trust or their will? Because all of those things are important. And my view is take a quick look at it as we close out the year, and you don't have to worry about it during the 2018 year. The other thing that we're also looking
Ron,
at is...
could I stop and
Sure.
ask you, is there any place, hopefully in your office, a checklist?
That's actually a great question. We do have a checklist. It's actually on our front desk when you walk in the finance office.
Oh, it is.
And individuals can look to see, okay, do I have all of these
Exactly.
things? And we'll gladly pull the file for each resident, walk through it. Here's what's listed. Here's what's not listed, or things that you don't have in your file.
All right.
And provide recommendations of how to actually get that in a timely manner so that your wishes are actually adhered to, whatever that transition that you'll go through.
How many items are on that list? About
If I'm
5?
not mistaken, there are 7 items on that list. And some of the big ticket items are clearly the resident care agreement, a will or trust, the refund of distribution form.
I don't ever remember seeing that. Refund distribution form.
Right, so that gives us guidance on when we distribute your, refund your deposit, either to you or to your family members.
Doesn't
who
that
does it go to?
automatically go to your executor?
It depends on if you have a will or trust, as well as how you've identified it. So that is a unique document that really will supersede any other documents that you have, such as a will or trust, because that gives specific guidance of how those funds that you've entrusted to Greenspring and Erickson, how those will be returned. So that actually will supersede any other document that you have.
One thing is occurring to me. Have you ever given a program, either on Channel 6 or otherwise, on all those documents just as a list?
And the answer to that is no. However, during the 2018 year, we're kicking off a new financial form, which is a resident and care agreement overview form. And we actually will be looking at everything that's in the RCA, as well as slightly other documents that will benefit the resident. We talk about your responsibilities as well as our responsibilities as a service provider. So all of that will be covered in this upcoming
Ron,
form.
I think that would be extremely helpful.
Sure. So the plug for that, the first form is going to be on March the 8th in the Hunters Crossing Conference Center at 12:30. So we will actually be doing RSVPs as we normally do for our forums. There will be a light lunch provided. And so we're asking our residents as well as their family members attend, because often family members are not aware of what did their loved one sign when they came to become a resident here.
Loved ones often aren't aware of what they signed either.
Very
it's
true.
been long enough ago.
Very true. So we're definitely going to be promoting all of those types of activities so individuals fully are aware of their responsibilities as well as our responsibilities as a service provider.
Well, Ron, I think that's excellent. Certainly the transparency that you have brought to this process is enormously helpful. No, I mean, I never even heard of that form. Now, isn't that ridiculous? But okay, that will be super.
Yeah. So the other big activity that we're trying to do as we interact with our residents as we close out 2017 is trying to make sure everyone is paying their old balances. So I'm looking at AR, trying to make sure that anyone that has an invoice that's a month or 2 months old, let's get that collected. We as a community are really responsible for ensuring that there are timely payments to the monthly service fees. As I mentioned months ago, in the RCA, there is the option for us to allow fees or interest fees to be added to unpaid AR balances, and so that's something that we have instituted this year. It is not something that previously was implemented, but we look at it, we need to entice.
It's 90 days, isn't it?
It's actually anything over 60 days.
Over 60.
Interest can be charged to that, and that's 1.5%. But when you look at that compounded monthly, it really equates to 18% interest. So when individuals hear 18%, it automatically says, I don't want to be charged 18%. Let me pay that bill.
Right.
So you are asking our residents if they've missed a payment or they need to catch up, stop by the finance office. We can create a new invoice, make sure folks understand what they actually owe, and they can actually close out their account for the 2017 year. So.
All right. Well, that makes sense to try to get everything in by the end of the month.
Agreed.
Okay. That sounds good. Anything else you've got for us?
One of the things that's really exciting at this time of the year, all of our departments are gearing up for the 2018 year. And so, lots of exciting things that almost every department is trying to push forward. I know that our resident life team is really looking to enhance the home support activities that they're providing. They're actually doing promotions and discounts and things to really entice our residents to use our services. And we always try to promote internal use of services versus our residents having to go outside of these walls to get services or support services for themselves. Dining services is always looking to how do you enhance the dining experience of our residents. So I know Ty and his new assistant director, Jason, they're looking at how do we provide a new menu in many instances. So the bistro has a new menu that just rolled out.
Oh, really?
And all of that is really geared to a new year. Let's kind of kick things off in a great way. So lots of things going on campus. And while I'm only the individual behind the spreadsheets, I really feel part of trying to ensure that our residents are feeling the input of a campus that's really trying to cater to their needs from a service standpoint as well as a financial standpoint.
Well, that all sounds good. I'm delighted to hear about the bistro. We have had the same menu, I think, about 5 or 6 years. So
I'll
we're
tell
ready.
You, Ty did a tasting a week or so ago, and I'll tell you, almost everything on the menu was simply awesome. Now, the mushroom, the cream mushroom soup is not on the menu. They need to bring that one back because I simply love that one myself.
Have they stopped doing it?
I think that they're looking at trying to say how do that become a specialty on the menu, but the menu is simply awesome. So I think our residents will really love the change there.
Oh, well, that's very good news. I'm sorry about the mushroom soup, though. I think all of us have loved that. Ron, I see we're coming down to the last minute or so here. Anything you'd like to leave us with this morning?
The one thing that the finance team as a whole, I always try to make sure that our residents and the campus really doesn't see me as the only individual. I have a great team that supports all of our activities, and so we are going to be trying to make sure that we're still here, but I want to make sure that from the entire finance team that we're wishing our residents a great holiday season. We will still be here, normal business hours, almost every day throughout the holiday season.
All right.
So we're here to support, but we definitely want everyone to have a great, safe, and happy holiday season.
I assume you're taking Christmas and New Year's Day off.
New Year's Day, Christmas Day off, but aside from that, the office will be open.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good to know too. Well, Ron, many thanks this morning. As always, you make things so clear and helpful, so we appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Always glad to be here, Marcia.
Thank you. We'll stop now and have a roll-in.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. As there's no ways to go. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. And it doesn't show signs of stopping. And I brought some corn for popping. The lights are turned way down low. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. What do you get when you cross a snowman and a dog?
I don't know. A wet, a cold
you get frostbite. What did one snowman say to the other snowman?
You melt my heart.
Do you smell carrots? Gertie, let me tell you a little joke. What do snowmen like to do on the weekend? Chill out. Come on, you get it? Tough crowd. Did you know that Santa only had 8 reindeer last Christmas? It's because Comet stayed home to clean the sink. When we finally kiss goodnight, how I hate going out in the storm. But if you really hold me tight, all the way home I'll be warm. And the fire is slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbying. But
As long as you love me so, let it snow,
let it snow, let it snow.
Well, welcome back. I'm delighted to welcome Kelly Lukschander, who is our volunteer coordinator.
Hi, Marcia.
Hi, Kelly. Glad to have you here today. We're going to be talking about something that I don't know that I've heard on Channel 6 before, or not at least exclusively, and that is volunteering in hospice.
Yeah.
Talk to us about who volunteers, how many volunteers, what the duties are.
Sure, absolutely.
Tell us about this program.
Yes, so as the volunteer coordinator on campus for everything, a little side portion that I have, I guess, would be the volunteer coordinator for hospice. So as Green Spring, we have our own hospice program, and kind of what that encompasses is you get a whole team of staff, if you're on hospice, that works basically for you and for your needs. So when you're in hospice, you have a nurse, you have an aide, you have a chaplain if you have spiritual needs, you have access to a social worker, and then also access to a volunteer if you'd like. So that's where I kind of come in as the liaison between our volunteers and the residents. So basically for hospice volunteering, our main goal is for ours at Green Spring is a lot of just care and comfort, and socialization is a big part of it. So the good thing, I think, an interesting thing about Green Spring and our hospice is our volunteers, majority of them are residents here.
That's what
and we
I
have
thought.
a majority of our patients or residents on hospice are residents of Green Spring or long time. So sometimes even a volunteer may know somebody and say, I'd like to see my friend and help them where I can, or do what I can.
all right.
So that's kind of a fun thing that happens sometimes.
So your volunteers actually sometimes can choose their hospice.
Yeah, so
person,
well, kind of how
or
it works
vice
is
versa?
when I find out when we have a resident that would be interested in having a volunteer, I'll reach out to the person themselves or their family member if they're unable, and kind of get to know the person a little bit. And through those conversations, sometimes I can find out, oh, they were big into the treasure chest. I have a volunteer that was really involved in the treasure chest. Maybe they know each other. So the volunteers don't get that information about who's a new resident on hospice. They don't get that information until I give it out, but I do a little bit of, I guess, digging to find out what that person might need and who they might know.
Oh, so you do some assessment.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's a good thing, because you want to know what the person might want. So a lot of times we have a range of different things. Some people, it's strictly maybe just a comforting presence in the room. You know, you have your family members coming in all the time, maybe to see you once a week or however many times, but you can have somebody else who's not related to you, which is kind of a nice thing sometimes. Somebody who doesn't have any knowledge about you, they're just going to be in the room with you, and they're not going to say where are your blankets or be hassling you. They'll just be there sitting with you.
I think sometimes just sitting quietly.
Exactly. So I mean, none of us like to be alone. So imagine in that situation, you get to have that person there.
There would be a comfort.
Yeah. So with our volunteers, we have say about 5 or 6 right now. I say that it's not an exact number because I have some volunteers going through the process to become hospice volunteers.
Now,
sure.
Do talk about the process.
Absolutely. So I say it process. It is a process.
5 or 6 you have now. Is that a fairly? Now they're usually 20, 25, somewhere in there.
20 to 25
people in hospice.
Correct. So I would, 6 or so, maybe a little bit more would be nice. I think my goal would be to have volunteers seeing maybe 2 at the max residents. You know,
okay.
I have some that are stretched out. I have a super volunteer. I'm not going to call her out, but she's doing a lot for me right now because I could use a few more volunteers.
All right.
But the process, I'll go through that a little bit because I do have 2 right now that are going through it and kind of waiting in the wings for me to initiate. The reason it takes so long is there's some paperwork which I'll go through, but there's also a DVD training series that is 5.5 hours long. So if you don't have a DVD player in your home, trying to coordinate that with some people, making sure we can watch it and stay awake. I mean, it's a long time, so you might want to break it up into segments.
Now, is that commercially produced?
Yes. So it's something we have purchased. I was given it as I got into the office, but it's something we've purchased. It's mass produced, and then also it comes with an assessment. So after you go through this video training series, you have to pass the assessment to make it to be an official volunteer.
And is the assessment a practicum kind
Yeah,
of
so
thing?
it brings you right back to college or high school. We have multiple choice. There's about 100 questions on this assessment.
Whoa.
And I don't want to make people nervous. True and false sometimes is trickier than anything else. It's like, well, it could be true. So a lot of times we'll go through the assessment and we'll talk through if there's a little discrepancy with the answers, and usually we come around to the right answer. So that's one portion of it, kind of the assessment and training. And there's also a volunteer orientation that I do that's in addition to that. So you have all that training to do to be a volunteer with hospice.
And how long does that normally take?
The whole process, I'd like to say, is under 2 months.
Under 2 months? Oh,
So
my
I say
heavens.
months. The coordination, I want to say that now. I would like to streamline it a little bit better and have certain dates and times, but right now it's been kind of working with people and their schedules and trying to get it done. So the other portion of it that takes a long time is the medical test and background check. So you have to have a clean tuberculosis TB screening and test, and we do that here at Green Spring. We have an employee health and wellness center in Garden Ridge, and so we do the test there. And so with a TB test, you have to get the test, go back in a few days to get it checked on your skin. That's how it works. And then in about 2 weeks, you have to do that same thing again. So that's time right there. There's a drug screening. You have to get those results back, and then the background check.
Well, now, what kind of background check do you do?
We do it through our human resources department, so I don't know exactly what they check out. But we're making sure all of our volunteers are clean.
Well, now, wait a minute. Let's stop right here. I'm quite interested in this. Do all your volunteers go through a background check?
So all of external volunteers, if they're volunteering on campus, do a background check. But
external, I understand, but residents too?
If they are not doing any direct patient contact like hospice, no. So if you, Marcia, wanted to go over in Garden Ridge and maybe hand out brochures at the Sunday chapel, I would not background check you
What
because
if
you are
I
a
brought
resident
my dog
here.
over?
Your dog, we'd have to get some paperwork for your dog.
All right.
So pretty much.
So he has to go through a background check, but I do not.
You're clear, but we got to see that he's all right. But yeah, so residents, usually it's fine because you've gone through the process to be a resident here at Green
Well, that's what I
Spring.
was thinking, that presumably that has been done. But with hospice
With hospice,
volunteers...
they have to have that background check because we are going through Medicare. And
Oh,
so it
is
becomes
that
a
the
different
requirement?
thing.
All right. Well, now,
so-
why is that? I mean, Medicare also... Oh, well, no.
I mean, it comes back to protecting, residents and patients. It's all
right.
that kind of
All
thing.
right.
So
Gotcha.
our hospice volunteers really have the longest process of volunteer,
Of all
becoming a volunteer, all that
the
I have.
volunteers? Okay.
Because of the training as well. So becoming a volunteer is tough, but once you become one, it's kind of an easy flowing relationship. Once I have you kind of on my team of volunteers, like I said, I get a new resident that would like a volunteer. I find out what their needs might be, and then I match them with the person. And what I do then, if I call you and I say, hey, Marcia, you're one of my volunteers. I have so-and-so. This is what they might like. This is where they live. You kind of give them a full picture. So the volunteer might know what they did, where they grew up. You get kind of the full, I like to give someone a full picture of them. Where they grew up, maybe if they lived at Green Spring, what they did here, and then what they're doing now, what they might like. So a lot of times, our volunteers are maybe reading if there's a particular book or something that somebody likes, or sometimes it's even like prayers or something spiritual we've had. I can help provide that to the volunteer if you know that there's something that the resident might like. We try to help make that easy. Also, listening to music is another big one that we have. So we have CD players that I can lend out to my volunteers, and I can help find CDs if there's a particular artist or something we know that the resident would like to hear. So we really try our best to make it, it's exactly what that resident needs. It's not the same for every person. So when you become a hospice volunteer, it really is an organic process, and as you are assigned, and what I've seen so far, we have amazing volunteers. They're able to just get to know the person and alter what they do. Maybe it's, oh, I thought I was going to visit them at 11, but I can tell that this person really does like it better in the afternoon. Like, it's all just whatever the resident needs, our volunteers help, and that's really amazing. They're really something special to write home about.
Well, that would take an enormous dedication.
It really does, and with our
have some of those volunteers been with that program for a long time?
Yes, so I have been, what's the word, I guess gifted when I got this position back in July with some amazing volunteers who've been doing it for a long time. And some that are new. So, and I'm getting new ones now that are amazing. And so we're going through this together. And I am still looking if there's something in your heart that you think you'd like to give back to Green Spring and Green Spring Hospice. If you'd like to work in the office, we have opportunities there. That's also an opportunity.
Oh, you do? What do people do in the office?
Yeah, so we have the hospice office is in Forest View and Village Square.
Yes.
And there's a lot of different need down there. I have one new volunteer who's doing a lot of work. She's helping filing, and sometimes it depends. You could even be answering phones if you got up to that level. It's kind of what you'd like to do, but there's always a need down there. You could be helping with our social worker. She has bereavement things that she sends out, maybe helping her with a mailing of cards. There's all sorts of things that go on behind the scenes in hospice
I can
that
imagine.
wouldn't be HIPAA. It's not you wouldn't see any names or any information like that, but there's still plenty of work to be done. So if you have an administrative, bone that needs to be tapped, call me and we can get you into hospice and help us there.
All right.
So another thing with the volunteering in hospice is it is a requirement. We do have to have 5% of our patient hours has to come from volunteers. So that's that's part of the Medicare requirement.
Oh, it is. Interesting.
So it is something that is important, and we want to do it, but it's also something that we are required as part of to be a hospice. You have to have that. So
I wonder why that requirement.
I don't know. I guess it's a different kind of care that you wouldn't necessarily see if you weren't on hospice, and you have that. So if to be a hospice, you really have to be providing that service. So if you're not doing it, I guess then it wouldn't be considered. But yeah, it's a special thing, and I'm glad to be a part of the team. Our team of nurses and our chaplain and our social worker, it's such a caring group. So I'm really glad that this is a part of the job that I'm in now.
Well, Kelly, this is very interesting. I think we all knew that there were volunteers in hospice, but this provides a lot more information.
Yeah.
And hopefully, some folks are watching this today and will come down and volunteer.
Absolutely.
No, that sounds really good. Well, I see we're down to the last minute here. Is there anything you would like to leave us with? You said you were going to be back on Village in Motion. Is it next week?
Yeah, I'll be back next week, so don't get sick of this face.
But you'll be talking about volunteers.
I'll be talking about volunteers, and that will be after the Christmas holiday. So I want to say before that, even happy holidays to all the volunteers, and thank you for all that you do. You make my job easy. You make my job rewarding. You make me proud every day. So I'm happy to be here, and happy holidays.
Very nicely put, Kelly. Thank you so much, and thanks for coming in today. This was extremely helpful.
Thanks, Marcia.
I think we'll stop.